election
Now is a more
another scare campaign for Mr. Howard.
Family values to stand up and be counted.
Hi, welcome back to YouDecide 2007. YouDecide2007.org is our website where you go, you can report and you can decide. And every Friday night, to help interpret what's happened on the website to you as the audience, we have a panel of Brisbane's best and brightest. And this time we've got a few newcomers on the panel. We've got Kelly Hussey-Smith. Apart from being one of the best contributors to the YouDecide site, Kelly's also the editor of Australian Photojournalist. We've got, once again, Dale Spender. She's bright and she's purple. And we've got Terry Flew, media and communications specialist. Like me, he pays his party membership. Unlike me, it's the Labor Party. I'm Graham Young. I'm the founder and chief editor of Online Opinion, and I bring this to you every Friday night. To start with, we want to have a look at a video from the seat of Brisbane. The man you're about to see is Arch Bevis. He, unlike some of the people we've shown you before, isn't a minor party candidate. He's the member and he's the Labor Party candidate in the seat.
This election is one in which we can take a decision to once again play our role in the international community on global warming. Clearly one of the major issues confronting not just us and our corner of the world, but the planet as a whole. Unfortunately, we've now seen a decade go by where we have dropped the ball as a country, but worse than that, we've tarnished the name of Australia in the international negotiations. And I just want to turn the clock back very quickly. Prior to 96, everyone's heard about Kyoto, not as many people have heard about the conferences prior to that leading up to Kyoto. That was in the days when we actually had a Labor government, and we were staunch supporters and keen advocates on the work then being done to establish the first ever international protocol.
Okay, welcome back. So, there you've seen a real-life elected politician at work in his local area talking to a crowd in quite a noisy pub. Terry, you're a communications specialist. What sort of a communications job was he doing there? Do you think he was doing the party any favours?
Well, I think he was doing it by numbers, really, and it's very striking that the contrast between Rudd's presentations, which are very slick and on message, and that presentation there, which seemed to be somewhat rambling. But I guess it stayed to the small number of main points that they want to focus on, which are work choices, Kyoto Protocol, health and education. But it was striking that Kyoto and work choices dominated, and health and education almost seemed to be an afterthought.
Yeah, well, one of the things that struck me as interesting is that in our polling, education's come up as quite a significant issue. But he really only touched on that at the end of his speech, and then he threw in health as well. Do you think he had his priorities right, Kelly? Was that the sort of speech that you'd respond to well if you were a voter in that seat?
I think, like we were saying off camera, I think there's probably quite a lot to do with it being a new farm. You know, the people who are around responding quite well to issues like climate change. And it seemed to me that almost he spent too long talking about climate change, and he almost just might have forgotten. And
he didn't talk about working Australian families, did he?
No, he didn't mention that.
So maybe it could have rung your bells a little bit more brightly?
Working families?
Well, just the whole speech. There weren't any of the key phrases in there. He didn't talk, when he talked about education, he didn't talk about the education revolution, which is something that Dale's very excited about.
But it's hard to talk about. And to talk about the education revolution, and which is something I'm doing all the time, and to try and do it in sound bites when you're actually talking about a transformation of the way we learn and read and write. I mean, you couldn't possibly do it, which is why all the policy, I think, has been about things that people understand: more places, more money, you know, more computers, etc. So I think, you know, I'd let him off the hook on that, but I think he could have made a little bit more of work choices and a little bit more of health, although health might not be a good topic in Queensland.
Well, work choices, we haven't talked about that much on this panel to date. Terry, he said work choices and he got a big cheer. Do you think that was because there was a union contingent there backing him in the audience?
Oh no, I think not in New Farm anymore, probably.
Surely there'd be lots of members of the public sector union down there.
there could be, but how active they are, I don't know. I think work choices is probably going to be looked at as the millstone that sunk Howard, in that it severed the critical connection that the Howard government had established to socially conservative working class Australia. And I think while much of the focus in the media is on seats like Bennelong and Wentworth, I think what's going to decide this is landslides in some of the outer suburban seats, and I think that's very connected to work choices.
And go on.
Well, I just was going to say I agree, because when I'm on the street doing vox pops, like I can tell you now, work choices is a vote changer. It's one of the only issues that people have spoken to me and said, I have changed my vote because of work choices.
And again, I don't think you have to go into the detail. I mean, when Rudd stands there and says, we can have a more decent society, we can have a fairer society, we can help people who need a hand, I think that's the level at which people are responding to work choices, even when it doesn't directly affect them. It's that emotional notion about compassion and Labor having a heart, etc. I think it's very clever.
So it's all about perceptions, it's not about reality?
I thought we were talking about perceptions. Did I get it wrong?
I think the reality is that after Labor are elected, they're going to wind back work choices a lot less than many people are anticipating.
Well, that's what Barnaby Joyce thinks, because he says you'll vote for it because it's no different. But then, if that's the case, why are the unions pouring so much money into the ALP? I mean, into this campaign, they must be expecting a payoff, surely.
Well, it was make or break for the trade unions if the coalition was re-elected.
Sounds like it's break both ways. And broke with all the money they're spending.
No, I think
isn't it about they're frightened it'll get worse?
Well, I think there's a difference. There's two issues with work choices. One is I don't think people are that worried about whether a truck driver in the Pilbara earning $100,000 a year is on an AWA or an award. And then there's people's children who are working in shops and retail and so on. That's the group that people are quite worried about, or people working as cleaners or in those manual jobs.
In which case, everything that everyone dislikes about their job gets blamed on AWAs, doesn't it?
Well, I think it can. I think it can be used to say, my conditions at work are very bad, and that's because of work choices. And I think again, that's part of the cleverness of saying we can have a more decent society. I mean, that's what I want. I want a more compassionate and more decent society. I mean, that's my commitment to the Labor Party, and that strikes a chord with me in so many ways.
Okay, Kelly? You go along with that? It's a question of decency versus indecency. Work choice is not really about employment conditions.
Or decency versus exploitation, Kelly.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Well, that's certainly how it's been portrayed in the media.
Okay, and Terry, you'd go along with that too?
I think work choices has had an impact on people who aren't in the workforce anymore, interestingly. I think a lot of those older Australians who swung to Howard in the 90s and 2000s because they didn't like, perceptions of Labor being too politically correct or whatever it might have been, work choices hits them as pointing to a different type of society.
Okay, so they've come back because of it.
I think so.
All right, well, we might call it quits there on work choices, or time out perhaps, and we'll be back after this with another segment.